Cydonia, the face and pyramid on Mars, are real, claim former NASA scientists. The pictures tell you everything you need to know about what's at Cydonia Mensa on the red planet Mars. And if you see on a planet that used to be Earth-like a carved human face and a pyramid within 5 kilometers of each other, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what this all means, and you can connect the dots. I also want to remind you I do have a playlist of the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean, Hermes Trismegistus. He clearly talks about ancient advanced technology, that they had intergalactic travel and even interdimensional travel. He also said that one of the exiled generals of the Atlanteans was exiled to Mars. He was buried under a face structure, and his entourage of generals was buried near him under pyramids. Let's remember, even Alexander the Great wanted to build a pyramid for his father, but Macedonia, northern Greece, was quite poor at that time. He promised himself he would do it when he came back after conquering the East. He never got back, though. So, what do we know about Mars? We know that the planet that was once thought to be lifeless, dry and dead, in fact, is much more similar to Earth. In fact, that's in the past. That's what the Emerald Tablets of Thoth told us, that the Earth had, the planet Mars had an Earth-like atmosphere. So, what do we know about the planet that was once thought to be lifeless, dry and dead? Is much more similar to Earth. In fact, in the last couple of decades, scientists changed their mind about Mars drastically. Today we know that Mars was something like a second Earth millions of years ago, when our solar system was much younger. Thanks to numerous rovers and spacecraft on Mars, scientists have discovered that there is liquid water on the red planet today. Experts have found that in the distant past, Mars had massive oceans of liquid water, lakes, rivers, and an atmosphere that was eerily similar to that of Earth today. But what about life? What about advanced life? Is there any possibility that Mars was inhabited by advanced alien civilizations in the distant past? If there's just a slight possibility that Mars was home to advanced beings, wouldn't these beings have created structures and monuments and similar buildings like we did on Earth? If they did, is there any chance that we found such structures on Mars today? According to images of the surface of Mars, taken by the space probes Viking 1 and Viking 2, there is more to Mars than just a lifeless planet. Both probes launched in 1975 and made it successfully to Mars. Both probes took images of the red planet from orbit, and the first space probe made it successfully to the surface of Mars in July 1976, and the second landed just a month later. Their mission was to look for traces of life and obtain high-resolution images of Mars, and to study the composition of the Martian atmosphere. Curiously, as the Viking 1 spacecraft was orbiting the red planet, it spotted a strange structure on the surface of Mars. A massive 2-mile-long face was spotted in the so-called Cydonia region of Mars, leaving experts in total confusion. And we know that the reason why this face was made on Mars, from what is explained in the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean, Hermes Trismegistus, is that when the Atlantean spacecraft would be passing Mars, it would be able to easily see where that exiled general was buried under that face. Now, going back to the writings, in addition to spotting the face on Mars, the Viking 1 spacecraft also photographed a structure that resembles incredibly the Great Pyramid of Giza. In the 1980s, a cartographer and satellite imagery expert from Defense Mapping Agency named Errol Toren took a look at the pyramid and concluded that it was what he called the Rosetta Stone of Mars. He actually found various mathematical relationships that pointed to the other objects in the area that he thought were artificial looking. That is, they were natural elements, natural structures, they were created. He also concluded that the structures in the Cydonia region were inconsistent with the regional geology. Dr. John Brandenburg is one of the most important scientists who has spoken about Mars, the structures on Mars, and alien life on the red planet. Dr. Brandenburg worked on numerous scientific projects and also worked for the government. Brandenburg was the deputy manager of the Clementine mission to the moon, which discovered water at the moon's poles in 1994. And currently, Brandenburg works as a consultant to Morningstar Applied Physics. Speaking about the structures on the surface of Mars, Dr. Brandenburg said, "Someone complained to me, John, why do you have to bring Cydonia into this?" And I said, because I can read the map. Here's what is at Cydonia Mensa. There's a face on Mars, there's a D and M pyramid, there is a second shot. In the second shot that was taken July 25th, this was taken 30 days later, and the government was apparently doing a follow-up investigation. These two pictures tell you everything you need to know about what's at Cydonia Mensa. If you see on the planet that used to be Earth like a carved human face and a pyramid within 5 kilometers of each other, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what this all means. You can connect the dots. I mean, sometimes I can tell you as a scientist, and I've seen other scientists do this, if you're cornered, you're just brazing it out. You hold up a picture of a buffalo and instant that it's a dog, and insists that it's a dog. Quote from a conference in Bastrop, Texas, 2015. But Brandenburg was not the only one to suggest there are things on Mars that are just inexplicable. Dr. Brian O'Leary, former NASA astronaut and member of the 6th group of astronauts selected by NASA in 1967, who taught at the Cornell University late 1960s and taught physics, astronomy, and science policy assessment at various academic institutions, including the University of California, Berkeley, Hampshire College, and Princeton University from 1976 to 1981, had many things to say about Mars as well. O'Leary was very skeptical about Mars, however. After looking through hard evidence, he drastically changed his mind about Mars. While examining the work of Carl Sagan, O'Leary and Sagan worked together for years, O'Leary found inconsistencies that made him realize that the structures on Mars were something totally fascinating and not just pieces of rock. O'Leary commented that the famous face found in Cydonia on Mars, photographed by Viking in 1975, was tampered with by Sagan before being released to the public. It was very, very disappointing, he said to me, because not only was Carl wrong, he also fudged the data. He published a picture of the face in Parade magazine, a popular article saying that the face was just a natural formation, but he doctored the picture to make it look like a face. End quote. In a study published by Harvard titled Analysis of Images of the Face on Mars and Possible Intelligent Origin, O'Leary demonstrated the true nature of the structure on Mars. He said, "I began to realize just directly from the scientific point of view, not only hearsay, that this man was colluding with NASA, that there might be more to this than before. Carl was on a committee with a number of notable people. There was a report issued by the Brookings Institute in 1961, and that's about when I knew Carl. During those years, the 60s mostly was when I worked closely with him, that he and this other group said, well, if any ETs ever showed up on the Earth, it has to be covered up. And that's the only way we're going to be able to manage this, because if we can't, then it would be too much of a culture shock," O'Leary said. In addition to Brandenburg and O'Leary, Dr. Norman Berggren, a former employee of Ames Research Laboratory, NACA, that's National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, and Lockheed Missiles and Space Company, accused NASA of garbling images of Mars and fudging data obtained during the Viking 1 and 2 missions. And this is on Collective Spark. Please leave your comments about this, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.